What is going on, guys? Welcome back to another chess series, and in this video we are going to be talking about the concept of controlling the center of the board. Now, I don't know about you guys, but whenever I first started learning about chess, trying to get better, all of the books I was reading, all the videos I was watching online, they talked about this same core principle, this strategy that is get your pieces to the center of the board. Control the center of the board, and namely I'm talking about these four squares right here. Now, even though all these experts and grandmasters were pretty much saying to do this concept, I still had the question why? Why do I want to get my pieces to the center of the board? I mean, it seems like they would be in the most danger there, so why is it, better to get them in the center rather than the sides where maybe they could attack that way? And even though there are so many resources online saying get your pieces to the center, a lot of them fail to answer the question why. Why would you do this? How do you do this? And kind of all the things that surround this concept. So in this video, not only am I going to be teaching you guys the strategies of, get your pieces to the center, make sure your king's safe, knights before bishops, tomato, all the stuff that you heard before, but I want to kind of take a step deeper, a step further and explain the reasoning behind these, and I think it'll give you guys a better understanding of exactly where these concepts and strategies come from. So with that being said, let's go ahead and answer that first question of why do you want to get pieces to the center of the board? And in order to demonstrate why, what I'm going to do is actually clear out this entire board, and we're going to start with one piece. It's probably the minor piece that eventually you're going to be moving out the most often, and that is your knight. So if we're looking at our knight right here and no other pieces, so we won't worry about anything else right now, let's go ahead and take a look at the options to where this can move first. All right, so the knight starts on G1 and it can move to H3. It can also move to F3 and it can move to E2. So it has three options of where it can go. Now, this knight is a powerful piece. However, in order to allow this one piece to reach its full potential, it can't be on the edge of the board. So let's go ahead and with one move, let's just move it to, say, F3. Now in one move, now this knight, instead of controlling these three squares or attacking these three squares, we can see that it is now controlling 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So with one step closer to the center of the board, it almost tripled its attacking power. So I'm sure already you guys can see that, okay, it is more effective to have a knight towards the center rather than just, hanging out on the edge of the board somewhere. And that's another saying. If you hear a knight on the rim is dim or then a knight on the rim is grim, there are a couple different ways that I heard it. That's what it means. Knights are more effective when they're in the center of the board because that is when they have the most attacking power. Now along that same line, we can go ahead and take a look at the bishop as well. Now, whenever the bishop first starts out, of course, it's going to be blocked by your pawns, so you're eventually going to have to move them up, or they're going to get traded off, maybe, captured by the enemy. But essentially, once your bishop has some lanes to go to, then you want to get them to the center of the board as well. Now, why do I say that? Well, let's go ahead and do that same analysis where we're just going to look at the starting position, assuming no other pieces are on the board. So right now, this bishop on F1 can go to G2, H3, so that's two squares. And also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these 5 squares right here. So in its initial position, its very first position, this bishop has 7 possible squares that it can attack. Now let's say after some play, maybe we maneuver our bishop to this square right here, D5. So now let's do an analysis from here. Our bishop can now attack 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So almost twice as many squares when our bishop is in the center of the board. So as you guys can already see, your pieces are going to essentially be the most dangerous. They're going to be the most effective when they are in the center of the board. Now, in addition to all the benefits that we have regarding improving our attacking power, controlling the center of the board actually helps with our defense as well. Now, as you guys probably already know, the two most popular opening moves in chess are pawn to e4 and pawn to d4. Now, why is this? It's because with d4, this pawn is controlling these two squares, c5 and e5. Now with the move e4, this pawn is controlling these two squares, d5 and f5. Now what that means is that our enemy, whenever they want to develop their pieces, which we're going to be talking about in another video series, they of course want to control the center too, for all the same reasons that we do. Now, in addition to just controlling the center, whenever this enemy is going to try to attack our king right here, almost all of these pieces are going to have to move through the center at some point in time. So of course, black would like to take their bishop and maybe move it out here, move this bishop out here, maybe maneuver this knight down here. Of course, their queen is going to be moving out here. However, if our pawns are in the center controlling these valuable squares, it's going to make black's plan very, very difficult. So I'm going to try to get rid of some of my arrows here, clear things up a little bit. But that's essentially why controlling the center is so important for both sides. So now that we understand why the center is so valuable to both sides of the board, we can now take a look at how we can control the center with our pieces. How can we move our pieces to the middle of the board and, just as important, prevent our opponent from taking their pieces and positioning them in the center of the board? So as you saw from my earlier demonstration, that's kind of why d4 and e4 are the two most popular moves. And even if we look at the engine right now, it's recommending our first move, e4. And actually as a second recommendation, it's recommending d4. So okay, the engine agrees with what I'm teaching. That's always a good thing. So we'll go with the engine and go with e4. So again, what this move is doing is it's controlling our opponent from moving out to either of these positions, which would be great opening moves if our pawn wasn't there. So let's say that our opponent makes this move right here, knight to c6. Now this is actually a pretty good opening move because, as you can see, this knight is also controlling two very important valuable squares. Now from here, what we can do is we can just start moving our pieces, developing towards the center of the board. So I'm going to take my knight on b1 and move it to c3. Again, what this does is follow the same idea, control central squares. So not only does this attack this square, in case a pawn were to go out here, we could capture it, and then when queen captured the pawn, we could potentially capture the queen, but also it protects our pawn in the center, so if any piece were to try to come and capture it, we can just take it back. So again, whenever you are developing your pieces, and we're going to be talking about this in detail in the next video, try to develop them when they're protecting each other and also towards the center of the board. Now, along those same lines, let's say that black played a move like this. They wanted to take their knight and move it even more towards the center, so they wanted to stick it on e5. Well, when black took their knight and sticks it on e5, what we can do is we can actually kick it away, because again, we want our pieces in the center and we don't want black anywhere near the center. I mean, that's our territory, we have to claim it. So in this situation, even though that this position is rare, I just want to demonstrate this point. What we can do is take our pawn and bump it up to d4. So I'm going to take that pawn, bump it up to d4, and we are now kicking the knight away. I mean, it can stay here if it wants to get captured, but now it has to move away, and maybe it'll move to g6 or somewhere like that. Now, one last concept I want to point out, and let me just set up kind of a silly position. Now, you would never actually get this position in a game, but I just want to point out a simple concept right here, and that is whenever it is your turn to either make a trade or capture a piece, all other things being equal, you want to opt to capture towards the center. So right now, we obviously want to capture this pawn, and we have two choices. Do we want to capture it with our b3 pawn or d3 pawn? Well, in this instance, what we want to do is, since we know that getting pieces towards the center is the most important thing we can do, at least for this video concept, what we want to do is we want to take our b3 pawn and capture with that. So now not only do we capture their piece, which is always good, but this pawn is now controlling more central squares, and if we were to capture with this pawn on d3, then we would actually be taking away our pressure from the center, we would be taking away some of our control, which is of course not a good thing. So again, the last concept is whenever you have an option to make a trade or capture a piece, try to capture towards the center. So that's it for this video. In the next video, we're going to be talking about piece development. It's going to be amazing. So as always, thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you next time.